start the regularly scheduled board meeting for the Othello School District Board of Directors with a flag salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We don't get a lot of guests most of the time, but this is the first time in a long time that nobody is in the audience. So I was going to welcome guests, but welcome everyone other than guests. And if any guests show up, I'll just do a preemptive welcome to them. So I will accept a motion to approve the agenda.
I move to approve the agenda.
Second.
Motion by Director Garza, second by Director Stevenson. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 5-0.
4.
4-0. That's right, Tony's not here. Tony has an excused absence, by the way. He did ask me if it was okay. I told him no, but then I changed my mind. I'm assuming there's no public comment today. All right. We'll move on to item B2, board member reports. The first two items are for Director Stevenson, so go ahead.
So I do not have anything specific on the legislative report, but update on the linkage meetings. I put a call in, and we've been communicating back and forth with some people at CBHA. I gave them the first 2 date options, and before I called another one of those businesses that we had intended for the linkage, I wanted to give them an opportunity to say yes or no. Instead of potentially having 2 on the same night. So waiting to hear back from them. Hopefully by the next meeting, I'll have the next 2 meetings lined up, will be the plan.
Okay. Great, and I apologize, the next item I didn't put any policy next to, but this is our annual conference. I just wanted to start the discussion. We're all registered for it. You probably got the emails. We're all we've got hotel rooms. In case someone cannot be there, find out there's a conflict, we just want to make sure we get that canceled before we get any penalties. When we can still cancel. I think the 12th did you guys see on there? I think the 12th might be the deadline to let them know. So student reps, how are you guys looking for the conference?
I just wanted to know what the dates were.
Did you get the link on yours?
I did, but I don't know if I could find the actual dates for the.
So it's the 15th. So, and I'll let you know if we try to, when it's possible, connect a link to some of the items. And so if it's underlined, and usually in blue, if you click on it too, it'll take you to a website. But it's the 15th, 16th, and 17th. There's some early bird sessions on the 14th. Typically, that's something that the board hasn't typically gone to, but if they'd like to, they can take part in that. But definitely Thursday, Friday for sure. I am planning on changing my reservation to not stay Friday night. I know Saturday there's one breakout session in the closing session. I'm planning on leaving Friday in the evening. So I'll just be staying Wednesday and Thursday night. But for any other board members that have any changes they want to make to that, Thalia did a good job letting us know exactly what we're registered for. So
Yes, Thalia, I got the change for mine. I did want to do the pre-conference because I want to do that board member boot camp, which is almost an all-day thing. That's on Wednesday. Then you got me registered for Thursday.
I have you registered for Wednesday as well.
Okay, yes, but I don't have to be in Wenatchee until 4 o'clock on Friday for another conference. So I would like to do the first half of the day on Friday still.
I have a question real quick. So I'm reading the email in more detail. So this means that, like, I'm already registered, like, I'm already ready to go. I don't have to do anything?
right.
Okay.
You just have to say, yeah, you're good.
Okay. Just making sure.
Yep. Just if you have any conflicts, let us know, and so that we can get refunds for nights not needed to be stayed at the hotel and those kind of things. Now,
Okay.
when it said full registration, Thalia, did that mean Wednesday through, or was that just Thursday through Saturday?
It's Thursday through Saturday.
because the early bird is an extra registration, correct? Okay, good. I think mine's good except for that
And
one day,
Ken,
and I'll
I
take care
wanted
of
to
that.
say, so that boot camp, last year, I went to some of those, and it was the exact same thing that we had already been to, that training when we were still running.
And yes,
It was the exact same thing. And so I was frustrated with going to those and said, would you please put on these? It's the exact same thing, because I wouldn't have come.
okay.
So,
And there is one there later in the afternoon. It's on the getting recertified on the open public meeting
okay,
act too. That's later in the afternoon, at 4
Okay.
o'clock in the afternoon on Wednesday.
all right.
Is that something we have to get recertified for?
Every
Ken?
4 years.
Oh, okay. You guys did it last year when you got on, right?
Well, we took it online, but we didn't, I know there was no way to get the certificate.
You
It's
don't,
available
I
online.
don't think you have to get a certificate. I think you just have to
It's,
have taken it, but I'm not positive.
I was told that you're supposed to take it because the district's supposed to be able to keep a certificate on hand in case we're ever audited, that we could show that we have taken the class.
All right, just checking that. I'm not sure that we got a certificate. We did it online
Yeah.
as well. I think
Yeah.
there was 3 of us sat through it a couple years ago. Okay,
Oh,
And
sorry.
they've even got a certificate online that they present through the state, Secretary of State webpage, but it's all, it's all generic, it's all the same, but you just take it and put your school district and the official signature, sign it.
Would me and Taylor be able to come, like, do Thursday, Friday, and come back that Friday? Because I think we both have things going on Saturday, so we would like to be home on Friday. Could we do that?
talking about kind of doing the same thing that I was talking
Yeah.
about doing.
Yeah.
Come back in the evening on Friday.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So
I
we're
don't
home
see how I
Saturday.
can say I can do it and then tell you no.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm okay with it. The rest of the board is all right with it.
All right. Cool. Thank you.
Saves the district another night for a
Yeah.
hotel.
So would we just come Thursday morning and go to session and everything, or would we come Wednesday night?
So that's gonna be something you'll work out with Talia. Yeah.
Okay.
Because she will be the chaperone with that, I'm assuming, yes? Okay. And Mike, do you have any changes you want to make, or are you good?
Well, my change would depend on the election.
Okay.
If elected county commissioner, I think I wouldn't go.
Okay.
I mean, we won't know anything, so.
Sure.
but I
And
think
I think we'd still be able to get refunded for the hotel.
Yeah,
but-
that'd be the only change, I think.
All right,
I won't know till then.
okay. That's it for board member reports, unless there was something maybe that the board thought of that we wanted to discuss in this meeting. Okay, so we'll move on to item B3, student representative reports.
Well, I don't have too much going on at our school. We're just kind of focusing on the libraries around town, sticking those. They're kind of like, they look like birdhouses, but they're like big. So I know in math we're kind of working on dimensions and how we're going to build it and stuff. So that's what we're learning. Because in each class we have a different curriculum for the project. So that's kind of what we're working on at the moment. And we have our ASB elections this Thursday, I think. I'll have to double check, but it's this week.
Are you running?
No, I'm done running for things.
She already has something that's major.
Yeah, she didn't even talk about it. I was waiting for her to say something about it, but she's humble. That's true. Well, I'm
So,
still gonna throw it out there. A big congratulations. You are the new, is it the Othello Rodeo Queen?
Miss Rodeo Othello 2019.
Miss Rodeo Othello. Okay. Big deal. Congratulations.
All right, so kind of same. I don't really have too much. We do have AccuPlacer testing was taken last week, and I believe there still is running through that. The AccuPlacer is a math test that students take to register for college credit. So if they didn't take CWU pre-calc last year, they would have to, and take the test and pass to get CWU credit, they would have to take it this year at a harder level for calculus, if that makes sense. So it's just kind of testing to see, are you worth it to kind of put in the money to get that. So also PSAT preparation has begun. PSAT is testing on October 10th. So we do have, I know my English class, Roaches, are already kind of whipping us into shape doing that, and a lot of other classes are kind of preparing for that. So we do have homecoming next week, and it's just a lot of just preparation for that. OHS is starting a new tradition of drumline performing at homecoming soccer games. And we want to make a new tradition of bringing light to other sports rather than just volleyball and football. So we're trying to get people to go to the cross-country meet and trying to get people to go to the homecoming soccer games because they're athletes too. So that's kind of all I have. There's not very much unless you guys want to hear all about homecoming. That's all I got.
Well, I've been hearing.
I bet.
Okay, thank you. We will move on then to item C1, required approvals. I'll accept a motion.
I move that we approve the required approvals.
I will second that.
Been a motion by Director Stevenson to approve. Director Johnson as a second. Any discussion?
I do have a couple of questions or comments. So the minutes from the September 10th meeting, it says in there under E1 that preschool was going to be presenting on November 27th, and I thought we had talked about January was when we were going to be doing a visit to there.
That is true. Good catch.
So I think that that needed to be modified, and that was the only thing I had in. And I do have some questions under the payroll and accounts payable warrants. I didn't write down the oh, no, I'm sorry. No, I think it's in a different section. I'm in the wrong section. Oh, it's C2. Sorry. I'll wait until we get to those comments to ask those specific questions. So all the rest of the approvals other than that date change for the preschool was good with.
Any other discussion? So the motion was not specifically for a change. Is the board okay with that, with us just asking that change to be made? So in the future, knowing that that was I guess a typo, Jen, feel free to make the motion with that change.
Okay.
And then the rest of the board can second and allow, but pretty minor change, but that would be the
Right.
proper, I think that's
Okay.
the way to do it with Robert's rules, right?
Okay.
Okay, so all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 4-0. We'll move on then to superintendent comments. We've got the financial reports we normally have in there. Scrutiny site visit agenda. And then EL3, one of the ELs that Dr. Hirsch said he would be compliant by a certain date. I believe this is just, he's showing evidence of that. One of the things in the Scrutiny site visit, they just put in what we wanted for student visits for the last board meeting. I did get a request, I'll read it off from Tony. A little different request for the students. So his desire would be to meet with 6 students, 1 from each grade level, excluding kindergarten. And he'd like to have it where they choose students who grew over 1 year according to assessments in the last 12 months. So who made more than a year's growth was what he wanted the scrutiny to do. So choose a student from 1st through 6th grade
Okay.
who made over a year's growth in assessments. Now, obviously, 1st and 2nd is not going to be state assessments. That would be some district assessments, but he felt that that tied in with the board
So
policies.
not necessarily ELL students, just any student.
Any student who showed more than a year's growth in the past, I guess the previous school year is probably what he was talking about. That was his suggestion.
I think that sounds an interesting thing to try at least once.
No, I would agree. And that could be done okay with, to be able to tell
That's not a problem.
within the time period.
So the only change to the agenda would be just specifically what students we're meeting with.
Got it.
I guess I would have concerns with only 6. Could we have 8 instead of 6, and then they pick the other 2 from any grade that they choose?
I think-
Because my concern with 6 is, there's always the social butterfly that wants to talk over everything, and then there's always the shy 1 or 2, and that, it was too many to have that we had for Hiawatha, but I'm afraid 6 is too few, is my concern.
I think we have the ability to ask for whatever number we want. So
Right.
that's what would be up to the board to decide. 13, I think.
There was a lot.
What's that?
Right, I think 8 would be a good number than 2 just in case or something. Specifically those grades, yes.
What's the rest of the board feel on that?
Definitely.
So
I'd
it'd
like to see
be
more.
8 students, just make sure that 1st through 6th is covered, and then whatever the extra 2 are, doesn't really matter, is that? And obviously,
Not
the
the
reason,
same grade, I
the
guess.
reason for kindergarten, so that we're all clear, is because there's no growth that we can show, right? Everyone understands that, we're not just trying to
Right.
exclude kindergartners.
Right.
Okay,
We got it.
all right.
We're good.
Any other questions or comments on the,
I have questions
Superintendent
on the
comments.
financial reports. So, let me find the right page
Lisa's up?
to start. Let's see. You have obviously not watched past videos. So, it doesn't say what page. On
She has, that's why she asked.
Capital Projects Fund, sorry. It has the annual budget for local support non-tax was 7,925 was the budgeted amount, and the actual amount was 17,532. Right there, no, go back up 1. Oh, I'm sorry. No, you were at the right one, I told you the wrong one, sorry. Can you, and I know that's, that between the revenues and the expenditures was a difference, but that's a big percentage difference. Can you explain why?
I can tell you what
You
it
think
was.
maybe? Okay.
Those local support non-tax dollars are actually from your lease payments and I believe we've got ECAP, that is renting or leasing a facility, a couple rooms. And then there was also, a land lease, I believe on the 80 acres north of town. And I guess timing of that, Jen, I don't know what the timing was. So to be able to anticipate that, I don't know why the budget was only set at the 7,900. But those were what
Okay.
came in.
Right, and
They
I
were
understand that
legitimate,
was
yeah.
all pre-you.
Yeah.
All of these questions are pre-you.
No, that's
but
fine. But
It made me think how, we knew those things, so why were those not?
Yeah.
Someone should have known those things, I should say.
I would guess so, yes.
And then on page 7, but I didn't write down what page that was, so now I can't tell. Capital projects. Oh, wait, okay. Encumbrances carried over, that's where we're at. There we go. On the first page, it's words.
Right.
So it's page 2.
Mhm.
There was $359,716.39 of encumbrances carried over. Is that about the same amount as last year? Because I wasn't on the board last year to be able, not that I would remember those numbers either. I wanted to see if that's our average number.
Well, I can tell you why I had them put that in there in verbiage, because I did want it to be very clear that it was going to be a carryover amount, because in looking back historically, the district has not carried over encumbrances from year to year, which is totally an allowable process. there's $359,000 in legitimate 17-18 encumbrances that are allowable under generally accepted accounting principles to roll into the 18-19 budget.
So
What
can
has
you just
happened-
give the definition of encumbrances, just so we make
Right.
sure everyone understands that
Okay,
as
so
well?
an encumbrance is basically dollars that are spoken for. It's a purchase order. It's an encumbrance is speaking for the dollars in the 17-18 budget that were legitimate expenditures to name in the 17-18 budget, but those dollars have not transferred yet.
Right.
So
Okay.
what has happened historically in going back, and what was interesting was evidently the consultant, I think Becky Montgomery, as she was here, had also noted this and asked the finance folks about it, and said, well, how come there's not been any closeouts or any encumbrances carried over? And our finance department folks had just followed directives and really didn't know the basis of that. Becky questioned it because it really is almost, you can close them out, and that's what's happened. We've closed them out and then reopened them in the next year. But by doing so, we've almost, we absolutely have limited our expenditures in both years for the same dollar amount. So we're really restricting ourselves by doing so. If we had followed that same process with this, those $359,000 in expenses that were named in 17-18 would have been closed out, and we would have then rolled those purchase orders into 18-19 and taken them against the 18-19 budget capacity. We already used 17-18 budget capacity until the end of the year. So by doing so, we have shortchanged ourselves, if you will. So the consultant had recognized that, and then, as I came in and was asking, it was the exact same thing that I observed, and so I did have them go ahead and roll that.
Okay.
And it's totally a legitimate process, and they were, anxious to do so. As it was explained to them, our finance folks were like, oh, that makes total sense. So that's why. So to say what is at the same amount, I can't tell you what has been there,
Okay.
because over the past couple of years, 15-16 and 16-17, there was nothing rolled. The one thing that they did recall that had ever rolled in the past had been a capital projects. But it's the same process that you can use for your operating fund, and it really does leverage your budget capacity for both years, if you will.
So for the rest of those funds that were not already spoken for and were not spent in 17-18, do those just automatically go into the unspecified, unassigned balance?
Usually, the majority of them will certainly. It'll all go into your fund balance, and whether or not they're assigned or unassigned, the $359,000 will become assigned fund balance.
Okay.
Okay?
Right.
But anything that's not spoken for, that's collections over and above what you've received in revenue, or expenditures or budget capacity that you left on the table, if you will, that becomes part of your unassigned.
Okay.
Okay?
All right. Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. Any other questions or comments on item C2? All right, we'll move on to item D1, board response to monitoring reports. The first item, EL1, was found in compliance across the board with no comments. And so that one's an easy one. The second item, EL11. I apologize, I want to read that. I've gotten in the habit of reading that for the purpose of the recording. So EL1 states the superintendent shall not cause or allow any failure to consider the needs of students above all else. Any practice, activity, decision, condition, procedure, or organizational circumstance which is unlawful, unethical, unsafe, disrespectful, imprudent, unfair, inequitable, disruptive, undignified, or in violation of the law. Does that cover it? And so of those two bulleted items, the board found in compliance. EL11 reads, its title is Student Conduct and Discipline. It reads, "The superintendent shall not fail to establish a school environment that is civil, supportive, and conducive to effective teaching and learning, and free from unnecessary disruption. Therefore, the superintendent shall not cause or allow," first bulleted item, "a failure to adopt an age-appropriate written student conduct and discipline code that complies with state and federal laws, nor fail to consult with staff, students, and the community in developing the code, or distribute the conduct and discipline code, including significant changes to all students and staff." So we'll first talk about that initial bullet item. 4 found in compliance, 1 found in compliance with the following exception, and there were 3 comments. First comment says, "Thank you for having a district-wide policy about discipline. It is helpful and more consistent for everyone." I'm going to read the 3rd comment first. Just a note, can we fix formatting on this question? I think it was about maybe item 1 and 2 just being in one whole sentence. I'm not sure if it'll allow us to do that, but maybe to separate out item 1 and 2 was maybe the request on that.
Okay.
And then the 3rd comment we'll talk about, I'm assuming was the exception. After review of one school's handbook, the discipline matrix was referenced but was not supplied to staff. Anyone want to?
That one is
Explain that.
actually mine.
Okay.
And I did review, and I brought it in, talked to Dr. Hurst the next
Mhm.
day about it. The one school, I seen the policy book that was provided to staff. Like I said, it was referenced, but it was not supplied. And then I got on the web pages for all the schools, and the old matrix is still on the web pages for all the schools, listed K-5 instead of the new one, K-6. So, and I did have a problem with that stage, that question, the way it was asked, because the only problem I had was actually the bullet number 2, distributing the conduct and discipline code. That was the only area that I really had a problem.
Okay, so you're saying your exception was in regard to item 2?
Item 2, yes.
Gotcha. So it sounds like, Ken, you're saying that was based off your direct inspection?
Direct, yes.
It wasn't in the evidence that it wasn't distributed?
It was not supplied in the evidence that it was distributed.
Okay.
Also, so.
All right, I guess I would ask, any other board members have a direct inspection that they've made of
I had a direct inspection
noncompliance?
for Hiawatha, and it was in Hiawatha's handbook. So,
Was the current.
So no,
so that it was in compliance,
okay.
sorry.
Yeah.
No direct
compliance.
inspection of any
Yeah.
exceptions to compliance?
Correct. for
Okay.
me.
So is the feeling of the board would change their vote, or are we still looking at majority in compliance?
In compliance.
Okay. Are there any comments that the board would like to keep of those 3? I don't imagine we want to keep comment 3 about the formatting.
Can we keep both 1 and 2?
You can suggest whatever you'd like, and it's up to the board to decide if that's what they'd like to do.
Although it might be confusing to keep comment 2 if we just deem it in compliance.
I would say that maybe the confusion there too is that there would be assumption that we all reviewed
True.
that and noticed it, if we're wanting
I mean,
to
I
keep it in,
did-
because this is going to be what we're as a board collectively are saying.
Right, Ken did show me the handbook, and there was, I mean, it said, see discipline matrix on back page, and the back page was blank. So, so I guess I did see that by direct inspection also. But I still think we need to keep comment number 1, whether we do comment number 2 or not. Not just because it's my
We'll
comment.
start with that.
But-
So there's been a recommendation to keep comment 1. Who agrees with that?
I agree, because the matrix was a little more consistent throughout the.
I would suggest we change it from thank you for have to thank you for having.
Fine.
If it's gonna be, the assumption that I agree with it, I want it to be changed. Okay, so then, the item, I guess what's on the question is item 2, or suggestion 2. Does the board want to keep that? It would be speaking for the board, I would say, if it's kept.
I mean, I didn't do the physical inspection, so that wouldn't be representing me if it was in there.
Yeah, I think I feel the same way. We have 2 who did observe it. I don't know, when you have a split vote, I guess it waits till next board meeting and see what Tony says. It'd be a first for us.
That's true.
Depends on how strong you want to have that comment in there, maybe how strong you feel about it.
I think that's your question.
I think I was trying to make Dr. Hurst aware that it just wasn't in there, because I did come and talk to him the day after I did see the
And you felt like
paraprofessionals handbook.
your concerns
So,
were addressed and
I felt like-
resolved?
Yes. When
Okay.
I talked to him, I felt like it. But during the filling out of this, though, I still,
I mean, it might have
Abstain,
just
yeah.
been a
and
minor
it was just a
unintentional.
comment I was
Okay.
making. Like I say, and then I didn't even go back and check the web pages actually until yesterday, and noticed it on the web pages that they weren't the current matrix on all the schools.
How long has this matrix been in place?
We just finished it this summer. We just checked the websites also just now, and they're up, the current ones are up on there right now.
They're up there right now?
They're up there
Okay,
now.
'cause, yeah, I like I said, it was, I think yesterday I went
Yeah.
on and checked them all, and they were still listing K through 5.
Okay,
It says K through 6 now.
Great.
good. Okay, so I'm
So you're
feeling
good
like
with taking that off, is what you're saying? Okay.
I'm okay.
So the first question, then the comment would be just the first comment. Question 2, then, if everyone can remember the overarching statement, a failure to fairly, equitably, and consistently enforce the code. We also have 4 in compliance, 1 in compliance with the following exception. There's just 1 comment. It says, although there is now only 1 matrix for all K through 6 schools, how it is interpreted between admin and staff in different schools still needs work. Whose comment was that?
That's actually mine, again.
Okay.
And again, that was part of the same conversation with Dr. Hurst that day. And I think there's just, I won't say confusion, or just interpretation, how each school interprets it, in what stages. There was the one schools, they had minor and major incidences, and it wasn't really described what was a minor and major incidents. And with discussion from Dr. Hurst, a minor was level 1
Yep.
on it and stuff, but some staff, I don't think, are aware of that, or how it was interpreted.
So, in the evidence that was provided, you were saying that there was inconsistency,
It's through direct inspection
okay,
and then use,
and that had to do with equitably and consistently enforcing the code?
yes,
Or the interpretation
or
of
the
it.
interpretation of the code.
Does the board feel that that's what this, what question 2 is getting at? Is it within the realm of that question?
Well, interpretation is directly affecting how you enforce the
Enforce the
code. I don't know, I wouldn't say that I had any experience that would make me agree with this comment, but I would say it does apply here for where the comment should be, because I think that's part of the question you were asking. I wouldn't agree with the comment, but I think that this was in the right place for the comment to be.
So Kent, you're referencing admin staff and different schools, plural, so
Yes,
did you speak to
More than one school?
more
I
than
did.
one?
Okay.
a couple of employees, and they had a different look on what one another.
So was this employees' interpretation or the school leader's interpretation?
Employees.
So now we're
Like
looking at a
I say,
whole
I
different
don't know
story,
where
right?
I don't know where the breakdown is, if it's between administration when they pass it on to
The staff or not.
employees or staff, or
Administration's the one
where it's at.
enforcing it.
Yeah, I'd say it would be difficult, you know, for me to hold Chris accountable versus for a staff
Yes.
member who might have misinterpreted what was told to him. But if an administrator is sending a different message than what Dr. Hurst wants, then obviously I would think that would be within this, because it does say, cause or allow a failure to fairly, equitably, and consistently enforce the code. So, but employees' interpretation of it, I'm struggling with that one being anything that would hold Dr. Hurst accountable for. What do you guys think?
I'd have to say the administration or the administrator enforcing it would be the one responsible here.
What do you think,
But-
Jen?
I think I would agree with you, Rob, that I don't necessarily agree with it, and I would be surprised if because of this conversation, this wasn't addressed.
Sure. No, I'm sure, but at the same time, you could keep saying the same message. Doesn't mean the employees are going to get the same,
That's
are
true.
going to interpret it the same way. So that's what's difficult about it for me.
Right, yes.
Does that make sense, Ken?
Yes, it does, and it does.
I think, Dr. Hurst, did you want to comment at all on it, or? Okay. Okay, so
You and Ken already had the conversation.
Yes,
we
did.
so it sounds like, it's a good discussion, for sure.
Yeah.
Sounds like, I'm getting a sense that the board wants to stick within compliance with no comments on that? Okay.
I do.
Are you good with that too, Ken?
Yes.
Okay.
ma'am.
All right, so then the next one, a failure to recognize the negative impact of suspension or expulsion on student success. That was found to be in compliance. We only had 4 on that one, but all in compliance. Did anyone's comment maybe get missed on that one, or? Okay, everyone feels comfortable within compliance? A failure to communicate appropriate disciplinary information to staff members who have direct contact with students being disciplined. All 5 found in compliance with that. And a failure to afford students, parents, and school personnel consistently fair and equitable treatment and due process with regard to student conduct and discipline issues. All 5 found that to be in compliance. There were no additional remarks at the end of it. And so what I think the takeaway here is that the entire policy is in compliance, no exceptions, and 1 comment, which would be the first comment listed under question 1. Is that correct? Okay. We'll now move on to item D2, board self-monitoring. This was when we monitor ourselves, and student reps took part in this too for GP9, board member conflict of interest, and that reads, public office represents a trust created by the confidence the voters hold in the integrity of local government officials for the common good of the people. It is the expectation of the board that all board members operate under the highest ethical standards. For the purpose of this policy, a conflict of interest is considered to exist whenever a board member is or may reasonably appear to be in a position to request or receive, directly or indirectly, anything of value for or on account of his or her influence as a member of the school or of the board of directors. A board member must avoid conflict of interest with respect to his or her fiduciary responsibility. Accordingly, a board member will not A, disclose or use confidential information acquired in the performance of official duties to substantially further the board member's own personal financial interests. B, use the board member's position for personal or financial gain. C, solicit, accept, or receive any gift which would tend to improperly influence a reasonable person in that position of which the board member knows or should know is primarily for the purpose of the reward for official action taken. Sounds like lawyer speak. D, solicit, accept, or receive any gift from companies doing business with the district. E, use district personnel, equipment, or materials on an election campaign, in an election campaign. Number 2, it is permissible for a board member to receive A, campaign contributions and contributions in kind, which are reported. B, an occasional non-pecuniary gift, which is which is less than $50 in value in recognition of public service. C, payment or reimbursement for actual and necessary expenditures for travel and subsistence for attendance at a convention or other meeting in which the board member participates in his or her official capacity as a board member. D, a meal provided in conjunction with a speaking engagement where all participants are entitled to the same meal. No relative of a board member will be shown preference for employment in any position, and no board member or employee of a board member will have any pecuniary interest, directly or indirectly, in any contract, purchase of material, or activity paid for from school funds except as permitted by law. In all of these areas, the board and student representatives found in compliance. There was a new item added that I apologized last time and made sure they'd be added for future ones. I'm calling out the board on this one because only one person used this and it was me. So when it says, in order to maintain its commitment to excellence in governance, to the provisions of this policy, and to improve its own performance, the board commits to the following actions. My hope is that we all put something in there, right? That just showing, even if we're doing good, just something to continue. And so my comment was, continue to have an integrity in our actions. So for future ones, that's what that part's for, and hopefully the board will use it. And even suggestions and comments from the student reps would be welcome there. So obviously in compliance, does the board want to keep the comment as our commitment to excellence?
Yes.
All right. We'll move on to item E1 now. This is a review and discussion of revision of current board policies. This is a revised 4.1.2. There was some confusion in the last one we approved. And so this corrected that, but I also asked for another correction. So the main one was that we eliminated item 3 because it was redundant. It's covered in the section below that. But I also was, we had a discussion about when we would do these, and it's at all meetings, so we interpreted that that's all meetings. I put in all regular business meetings. One of the things that came to mind, for instance, in our next school visit, if we have to ask for them to bring out Chromebooks for us to do surveys or to do that, it seemed a little bit clunky.
Or for linkage, or, yeah.
So I just thought the most important area of this, and not that it's not important to make sure that we're following our policies and really reviewing how we're doing in all meetings, but I think the ones that it makes the most sense to me was the regular meetings, so that's why I put that in there, so, in case the board was wondering. So those are I believe, just 2 changes to that policy. Is that correct? Okay.
I think those look good.
Was that a motion?
I move that we approved these changes in red.
Been a motion by Director Stevenson to approve the revised policy GP 4.1.2.
Second?
Second by Director Garza. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 4-0. We are at item G1, upcoming events. You guys are doing great, by the way. Very proud of you. So there are a few upcoming events listed there. At the last board meeting, if you remember, we had a lot of discussion about this. And in the end, we said, Talia, you just keep determining what you think are important things to mention to us. If the board wants to be more specific about what's in upcoming events, it would be up to a board member to modify the policy or add to the policy. Item G2, board self-assessment. Now, was that quick enough to update that? You are incredible. She already updated to our new 4.1.2, by the way. So that's what we'll be doing right now. Want to remind you, item 3, there was no way, I guess, to choose yes, and then you'd be able to answer the other one. So really, we need to modify the future. We should be a yes or no, and then if yes, then we'll answer the next 2, I think is how it should be.
Then you're gonna have
A
to
little-
modify that.
That's a little, well, that's just a formatting thing for this, though, so we
Okay.
won't have to approve it. Under mark yes or no, there is just nowhere to mark yes or no. So NA would be the proper in this one because we didn't have any, oh, wait, no,
Are
sorry.
you trying to modify us in the middle of a survey?
Just trying to help, and I'm not. Carry on. Okay, all are in. So for the first one, the agenda was well planned to focus on the real work of the board. 5 said commendable. The board followed its agenda, did not allow itself to get sidetracked. 5 commendable, 1 good. The board's deliberations and decision-making were public. 5 commendable. All board members participated in discussion, no one dominated. 5 said commendable. Members listened attentively, avoiding side conversations. 5 commendable. I was saying 5 before, it was 6, sorry. 6 answered. 5 said commendable on that. 1 said satisfactory. I'm assuming there was a comment on that. No comment? You guys knock it off. I think that's twice in a row you've called yourself out on that, right?
I'm like explaining to her, so I guess it's not really side conversations, it's more just not paying attention to what's going on.
So those are good things to talk about, but in the meeting, actually, if you have something to add, we want to hear it. So feel free to add to us if it's,
I was just like explaining the WASDA conference and kind of what we do.
that you should probably keep till after the meeting. Yeah. But but feel free to, anytime you want to ask for clarification or share, we'd like that. Okay, so now the next section, board actions occurred at the policy level rather than at the operational level. 6 said yes. The board agenda referenced policy about each topic that was discussed. 6 said yes. The board chair helped the board efficiently conduct its meeting. 6 said yes. And the board supported the superintendent in any reasonable interpretations of its policies. We're stuck on this one still. 5 said yes. 1 said not applicable. So, did anyone who said not applicable, we want to talk about this again? Maybe not. I think we determined that pretty much every time we discuss things, we're really bringing into
supporting that.
interpretation. And some of it came up actually when you were talking about the issues you had with that policy. I think Tony convinced me that it really all is interpretation of the superintendent and whether or not we support it, so. That was a tough one sometimes for me.
There's a comment there.
All right, so we have a comment. Next section, all right, we don't have a comment. So for new or modified policies, we did have a modified policy today. Did the board write a new or modified policy? In the future, we'll be able to mark yes for that. And then for the first item, the board started with a broad statement and became more detailed in a logical and disciplined sequence. 3 said yes, 3 said not applicable. This will be an interesting discussion. The board asked the superintendent to provide his reasonable interpretation of the policy. 1 said yes, 1 said no, 4 said not applicable. So let's talk about this.
I said no, but then there's a comment about it.
Okay, let me read that. We modified a policy, and it had no effect on the superintendent. We did not ask for interpretation, since it was a GP, possibly needed change to this here. I think that you're absolutely right. I think it's,
So you were saying that if there's a yes, then you get the second question, only if it's an EL, not if it's a GP.
well, not necessarily, because why couldn't the answer to those all just be NA because they're GPs? Not applicable in a case where it's a GP because it applies to the board, not the superintendent.
Yes?
But still, if writing a new one, it would ask us the question of, did we still start in a broad
Mm-hmm.
and then get more narrow as we went along? So I don't know that I'd change that part of our policy, but I would say GPs automatically mean not applicable for the second item.
For that, then that's how I
What'd you
looked
say?
at it. That's how I looked at it
Yeah, I can see that.
for GP.
I almost marked no on that, and I went, wait a minute, that was a GP. Why would we ask the interpretation of the
Okay,
superintendent on our
you're right.
policies?
I would change my no to a not applicable,
Okay.
but there's a yes. Do we want to worry about that?
Well, someone thought that we asked his interpretation.
There's 3 yeses and 3 not applicables on writing a policy.
Mhm. Yeah, in this case, my feeling is that that first item, the board started with a broad statement, is only for new policies. Would the board agree with that?
Even an old policy, though, it would still apply, whether it's a broad statement or not.
Yeah, because there's a reason why we're changing it. So you gotta have,
I think it would still, apply.
Okay.
But, well, and this is this GP doesn't have
All right.
a broad statement. It never will have a broad statement because of what it is. So sometimes that just is not applicable, almost, even though we modified one. So,
So I'm just going to ask after this discussion, how many feel that that now is not applicable, yes or no? Like, do we feel like it's, whoever marked yes, do they still feel yes? That we start with a broad statement on this policy?
I still feel yes, because you come in and you explained why we needed to change 4.1 and the meetings and why we shouldn't have to do a survey monkey on every single. To me, that was your broad statement of why we are changing this.
But was the policy, did the
But do we
policy have a
want-
broad statement?
right, but if he has to explain it, then that's not a broad statement in the policy. This almost is a not applicable because it's just different.
Well, remember that anything that's 4 point something is actually a procedure.
Okay.
We've decided not a policy, right? So,
So you're saying
It
a not
is a
applicable because
policy.
it's a procedure, not a policy.
but it's not going to be written like typical policies because
Right.
it's technically a
Procedures.
procedure.
Same with
So I think,
agenda and other such things. 6 points and 7 points.
there's a couple of the yeses. Who marked yes on that? Just so we can-
I marked yes.
Okay.
I guess I'd probably change that to not applicable.
Someone
now.
else did. So I want to make sure everyone's clear on kind of what our discussion is, and so going forward. So are you less confused or even more confused now? Okay. Are we all, I think, do we have agreement on this one, on kind of what our thought process is?
So we need to remove the comment, or are we keeping those things? Do we
No,
need
it's
to
all
worry
in there.
about
This
it?
was,
This is
this is
just for
still our
us.
assessment. It doesn't, yeah, this is just our self-assessment.
Okay.
I don't think we're going to get docked pay this time because of it.
Good.
Four members felt it was a commendable meeting, and 2 said it was good for a weighted average of 4.67. Well done, board. With that, all business is complete, as I understand it. So this meeting is adjourned.
Okay, so the,
Steelers